I'm very happy with how my life has turned out, and whatever happens from this point forward, or I should say from 2017 on, when I remarried with my wife and became, I got my family back together and stopped being an idiot. It's just been gravy. It's been fantastic.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I'm very happy.
I mean, I might throw in there, you might want to get a new travel agent. It seems, again, the places they send you, not the best places. But, again,
dude,
it's experience.
I have timeshares in Mosul. If you want to go, you go experience. I got them for you, man. Timeshares right there in Kandahar and Mosul. We'll send you out there. You'll love it.
Altitude.
Tower, Atlanta is release to you. Runway 41 040 at 5. Clear for takeoff.
Seat tied. Altimeter 0 eyes. We're clear for takeoff. Clear for the airspace. Viper check 2. My brand ramp curve was at 354. Line set.
Viper 01, be advised the restricted area 6002 is still active.
Lights on. Next picture 16, 15,000. Viper 1 targeted.
I remember he would turn to me, and after we watched a scene, and he'd look at me and goes, "What'd you think?" And there was one scene in there that they didn't get right, and it was a scene where I got hit with the RPG, hit a side of the building and knocked me over, and it's when it was the counterattack at the consulate.
Okay.
Tanto, let's get up high, bro. This road's a choke point. We'll get established. Let you know when it's clear to advance.
Get back, you gotta move.
Contact front. RPG. Incoming! Oh, shit! Go, get cover, get cover! Move right! Left, by the trees!
And I just remember Pablo had his hand in I was carrying a Mark 46 at the time, and an M4, it was 46. And I remember during the scene, he got down to charge it, because he was showing it, charging it, locking that bolt to the front and locking it in place so he could start firing. Well, his palm was down. Dude, Ranger Battalion, no. Palms up. That's it. That's palm. I mean, it's just little things like that.
Yep.
And I mean, and I remember the scene was awesome, but it finished, and I looked at Pablo, and he knew this because we trained this. Me and him have actually. I said, dude, remember, every time, palm up, or every guy from the same 5th Ranger Regiment is going to walk out of the movie. And I looked at him. I said, "Where was your palm, dude?" And he goes, "It was down." And he goes, "Fuck." And I went over to Michael. He goes, and Pablo's like, "We got to do that scene again." And I go, "Michael, we have to, or you're going to lose half of your special operations community, particularly the Rangers." And they redid the scene again. I mean, they redid the whole. They chopped it up. They and they redid it again. So, but like I said, it was not a lot of time on the set. It was more meeting the guys, then going to base studios, helping them, doing a schematic of what the actual annex and the consulate looked like, then looking at topographical areas of Malta to see if we could find places in Morocco that would look the best, so they didn't have to construct a new set, because it was filmed in Malta and Morocco. Airport was Morocco.
Yeah, interesting.
The rest of it was Malta. And we did. It was amazing. The annex, honestly, in the movie, the setup, if you look from the sky view, it looks identical to what what we had in Benghazi, and it's set up exactly. The consulate's a little off. The road is diagonal, but the road in Benghazi was actually straight through, and not at a 7 to 2, not a 7 to 1. It was it was 12 to 6. But other than that, it looked pretty good. And the ambassador's house, it was banging. That thing was like, wow. Caesar's freaking Caesar's Palace pool, and I mean, it really was that gorgeous, and it really was that underprotected as well. I mean, it was. Was
it that? I mean, because the movie, it was a 10-acre or 13-acre compound. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
it was 9 acres. 9 acres. And it was.
That's a big plot.
That's why, that's why when we did see him, and I did say this to him, me being myself, on the diving board there, looking at them all, being my arrogant Tanto self, and I was salty as shit at that time. I'd been doing contracting for almost 11 years. You get salty, you say what you want to say, and because you don't have time to, you're a pilot, you know the deal. You don't have time to milly mouth around. Hey, and I said, dude, you all are gonna fucking die if you get attacked by any big element. Anybody gets in here, you're all gonna fucking die. And I remember Scott's eyes, Wickland, just went. And I did feel kind of shitty. I did. I was like, man, I shouldn't have said it like that. But, that's the day also. And we did. I said to him, if you ever need us, we'll come get you. And Roan said, yeah, we'll send, and he was being a smart ass kind of, because, yeah, we'll send the guys. Boone's coming. You'll be good to go. But I still get chills thinking about it because I remember that day too. It was very vivid, and it still remembers in my head because it was like it was a promise, and that's what you get in the military. That's why we always loved the fast movers and loved all the flyboys, loved you guys, because your word meant your word. If you said, hey, we're coming in to drop something, you're coming in. And on the guys on the ground, if we said, hey, we'll come get you. If you need us, just hit that 911 call. We're on our way. It's the same thing. And that's why I get chills, because it was a bonding moment for the team, for the guys, but also it made me very proud that not one of the guys that was there, Roan, I was there, Jack was there, myself was there, even though I was being an asshole, there wasn't like a flinch in it. Hey, we're going to come get you. Wink, wink. Not really. It was, no, dudes, we're here for you. We'll come get you. So yeah, they hit that right. They hit that entire scene right, and it was a shotgun style. They had a little offset that we were worried about. So, that they'd blown a hole in the wall about a month prior. They were just testing out the walls. They'd actually IED'd the compound twice before that attack. We didn't put that in the movie because the movie's already 2 hours and such. So, for those that don't know the history, why we were there, they had attacked the consulate twice prior to the big attack. They were doing what we would do. They were doing their little reconnaissance. They were doing their intel collections. Yep.
I was actually just listening to Fred Gavin. He was on the Cleared Hot podcast, and I forget what they call it. He was talking. He was with 7 Marines that got put on trial, the longest trial in Marine Corps history. And he is describing them visiting they show up, they're MARSOC raiders, the first ones in Afghanistan. They're, getting bogus, like there's inter-service rivalry. They get the bogus, like, hey, go do this. Well, they're, like, hey, they're going to be, go get them, be, Johnny on the spot. They go out to one of the cops, meet, and he's like, it's, 8 a.m. in the morning. It's like broad daylight. And the Army, these guys are out there doing their drills for doing, if they came in contact, which he's like, they were all the gunners were ducking and they were driving straight through. Well, he's like, obviously the Taliban's in the hills and they're just watching this. So they finish the meeting, they leave, they go drive up, do some recon, and then they're going through the village. Well, they get attacked on that, but it's interesting because people, you obviously, it, I know, like the enemy is very smart. And so those type of attacks, they do it. They're testing you to see what your response is going to be. When did those attacks happen in relation to
the British ambassador actually had been attacked 2.5 months prior, and he actually got hit. They were living at our annex. I'm not at our annex. They were living at the consulate. The British ambassador was actually housed at the U.S. consulate there. So that was the first one, and they got hit hard. And actually, the GRS team, I had come in the country yet, but there were elements. I believe TIG was still there at that time. They responded to that attack. That's what the GRS guys that were there. That was about a week before I got into country. That was the initial, and they got hit with RPG fire down that dirt road that you go into before you go into the front of the consulate. They got hit coming back to home to the consulate. So the bad guys already know where the Americans and the Brits so they're, and they also had, if you watch the movie, that's spot on. They had a house the Ansar Sharia had a house that was, I think it was 3 houses down from the front gate of the consulate. So they had a pre-positioned place that they could collect intel daily on. So that was the first attack. And then the first on an actual motorcade. And then the 2 IEDs happened about, one was, I want to say 45 days earlier, and then before our attack and before the 9/11, 2012, and then there was one 30 days earlier. And those were bombs, IEDs that were put outside the walls, and they were trying to see if they could just blow holes in the wall so they could, they could infill that way. They could just blow a hole in the wall like we would do. We'd blow a hole in the wall. We're not coming through the front gate. We got to come through the wall and mouse hole it. But I think after their intel and their IEDs didn't work very well. They blew some small holes in, but honestly, I think they'd watched so much and they watched how terrible the security was at the front gate and how lackadaisical it was. They're like, screw this. What are we doing this for? We'll just go right in through the front door. And that morning prior, the movie spot on. That's what they had done. I remember Scott telling us, say, there's people taking pictures of all over our compound today. And it was 9/11, 2000. It was that morning. 9/11 2012, and cops would come in disguised in cop cars. It was Ansar al-Sharia and Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, and they would stand on platforms and they were taking photos to do their final planning to hey, well, here's the front gate, here's the back gate, let's do our final intel collection, all right, and then we'll kick it off tonight. And so they had done their proper intel, believe me, at least, I would say at least 3 months prior, if not longer, that they've been collecting it just over a year period, because they lived right next to the consulate. And
right.
And it's not that hard to know Americans, especially if you're State Department. Us, we try to be nondescript when we buy local cars. A lot of those areas too, unless you're in Taliban country or you're down in you're down in Fallujah or Ramadi, they're not wearing man jammies and stuff everywhere. Like especially in Libya, they're wearing Western gear. They're wearing normal shirts, button-down shirts, and you can go buy those off the local economy. There's not a ton of jeans there, but there's jeans. Tunis is right next to Libya, and Tunis is dang near the Las Vegas of Africa. So there's a lot of Western wear that filters in. So it wasn't hard to blend in. But State Department, they never blend in because that's not how they do their security ops. I mean, bright blue, bright red Land Cruisers that look sweet. White guys with their dang aviators or whatever you want. I mean, it's just standing so it wasn't hard to figure out. Yeah, and it's a 9-acre compound with a U.S. flag in the middle of it. It's right there. So, but
where is it?
That being said, I know. That's right. That being said, our annex wasn't hidden either, because eventually you're gonna white guys. I don't care how much you try to hodge you up. I always used to tell my the weditos, the widows, the white boys coming in, dude. You guys all look like you're on steroids. You got arm tats up and down. I know you're white, but you got beards down to here that look like white guys. I said you're not blending in any, but. I said, so they're going to know we're here. And I think we all came to that conclusion. Eventually, yeah, they know we're here. And obviously when the mortars hit, they knew we were at, because those mortars were fire for effect. They hit the building that we would have hit. So, but I mean, intel was.
Sorry, I was like, I mean, imagine at that point, I mean, you guys, I mean, obviously that consulate and the annex is established, a lot of activity that's going in and out constantly. The pattern of life is pretty easy to develop. And again, like you said, people are sticking out like sore thumbs. So it just takes one follow. And then you see obviously the increased security, because I'm blanking on the name now. It was a local militia that was paid to
Blue Mountain Group. Mountain Group. And they were in 17 the 17 February Martyrs Brigade. There were those two. Blue Mountain Group was the British company.
Okay.
But they were local Libyans. That actually Mike Rogers, Congressman Mike Rogers' wife owned part of that, the Mountain Group. And then there was the 17th February Martyrs Brigade that was supposed to be our friendly brigade. That was another odd thing in that country. Most of the times, if we had a militia that was going to help us, be part of us, we trained with them, like Kandahar, like Khost, even spots in Kurdistan, especially with the Peshmerga. If we were going to rely on them, then we usually worked out with them. We trained with them. We went to the range with them. We went and broke bread with them. We had chai. We'd sit around. And I remember that we had none of that with 17 Feb. And I remember even asking Bob that. It's like, hey, all these other countries that we're in, this is usually what we do. If we're depending on them to help us, one of us is embedded with those guys, and we go train and live with them and hang out with them. And I said, we have no rapport with 17 Feb. And it just kind of blew it off. So they were our militia in words only. They weren't friendly with us, and a lot of them were switching sides with Ansar Sharia. A lot of them were switching sides with Al Qaeda. I mean, there was no, they got our backs. There was none of that. We had no continuity with them. We had no camaraderie with them, no rapport with them, and that was something that we had at other bases that they were going to be responsible for our protection. And I worked in Kandahar, where we had a tremendous Kandahar security force. I love those guys, but I was their head guy. I'd go out with them. We'd go train together. We'd go play soccer in the morning together. You've been to these bases. We spent time with them. Afghanistan's a big base like that with ANA or with any of the other Afghan security forces, or NDS, the National Defense Service, which is their CIA. I did contracts training those guys, but we spent all day with them and ate with them and hung out with them. We had none of that with the 17th Feb in Benghazi or Tripoli, for that matter. So I think it was just in in words that they were supposed to help us, but they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, loyalty is being bought, and like you really can't buy. You can't buy loyalty.
Yeah.
It's gonna dissolve at some level of gunfire, and it's probably the first crack, and then it's gone. The station chief that's depicted, in the movie, he's a career, he's a career guy, right? With that animosity that was depicted in the movie, I assume that was real.
That was actually, I'd worked with Bob at Mosul. He was a base chief at Mosul, and he just was your typical staffer that thought he knew everything. He was an East Coaster that thought he knew more than everybody else, and he was very condescending to us, and I didn't enjoy it. Now, we did have our arguments, we did have our fights, and we did have our, I don't like you, but we had to tolerate each other, and he knew that I didn't care for him, but it's one of those things where that comes with the territory. There's some bases where those chiefs are like that. They're very arrogant. They're very know-it-all-ish. They're the Harvard smart guys. I come to smart guys. Every smart guy that thinks they know it, and they don't want to listen to people like us, even though, a lot of us have more college than they do. I mean, shit, I have a master's. I almost have my second master's. I mean, it's if they want to split hairs and put on paper, but they don't see us that way. Now, that being said, that wasn't at every base, though, and that's what I want people to also. I had some tremendous chiefs as well. I had tremendous base chiefs and station chiefs that were outstanding, especially the old jawbreaker guys, the guys that were in the Mujahideen wars. Those guys were badasses, but also they knew how to handle themselves when situations like that took place, and they would let us do our jobs. Where Bob didn't. Bob didn't know what the hell he was doing as far as that goes. He knew how to do his case officer stuff. That's what he did. We didn't mess with that. He's an expert at that. Let him do his thing. But when it came to us having control in the stuff that we knew more than he did, he wasn't going to let that happen. And you saw that in the movie. But you also saw the animosity between us all, where he just really didn't care. At least the feeling I got, in my opinion, especially with the arguments that we got in, and the daily, we having to tolerate each other every day, and just the gut feeling. You can tell when somebody don't like you, and it's just the animosity was there. Grew every day, and then there were two other instances that we had where he didn't let us go out the gate. The first thing with Roan at the beginning of the movie, that happened. It was that the only difference was it was at night. It was a nighttime, and he went out to pick somebody up at the airport, and he actually went out to pick up some of our supplies from the airport too, and they stopped him. And I remember he's on the radio, and he's, I need you guys. And we got spun up, and me and Boone are sitting in the car, and we're keeping it low. We had another guy there that wasn't there that night at Benghazi. His name was Beast, and he was a 75th guy, and him and Tig were out of the cars, and they're screaming at Bob because Bob won't let us go help Roan. He's like, nope, you're going 17th Feb. And they're like, fuck you, no. And me and Boone are sitting there watching it all. We're pissed too, but they're already yelling at it. We don't need to throw more fuel on the fire. And then Roan came through. He goes, Roger, we talked our way out of it. I'm coming home. Disregard. You guys stand down. He didn't say stand down. He goes, he said stand by. That's what Roan said. And Roan had talked his way out of it, and he did that. He drew down with his M4, not a pistol. He was like, we got a drone. I'm in it right now. If you guys want to go after it. Because we talked like, Roan, what'd you do? He said, I pointed my gun and said, we're ready to go right now, right here. And I'm going to die. If I have to die, I'm going to die. I'm going to take you with me. And we got drones overhead, and he bluffed his way out of that situation. And so that also led to that animosity with Bob, is because it was a track record with him. We already have him not letting us go to help. And we had another incident with a case officer, and an interpreter got hemmed up in town, and he wouldn't let us go to that one either. We eventually did, but it was another of, no, you guys aren't going. That's not your job. Well, horse shit, it's not our job. It's our job in every other country except Libya. Why isn't our job? And it had a lot to do with, I think, he just being his last tour. Had a lot to do with being an insecure individual that liked to control people, especially alpha males or guys like us. But it also came down to where, he was retiring. He was done. This was his last duty station. Don't want any incidents on your last duty station. He's assist level, and you know that. That's a high level. He's going to retire at assist level. And he had a job locked in at the farm as a contract instructor. So the dude's going to live large, and he doesn't want any incidences at all. So it was typical. Well, yeah, you get this as well. It's typical of avoidance. Well, I don't want any incidences. Let's just avoid the problem, and it'll work out itself. If some people die, it's all right. But I'd rather be risk averse than actually do my job. And that was my opinion of him, and it's a strong opinion, but it's never wavered. I've never changed that opinion since the movie came out, when I started outwardly talking about it, and I haven't changed that opinion since 2012. It's always been the same. So.
Yeah, and obviously it's depicted in the movie. It's funny. I mean, I've actually recorded several podcasts, and I'm not sure how the sequence is going to release. I've recorded them over the last week, and that theme has actually come out. I was recording one last night with two buddies, and then that exact same thing of leadership kind of made its way to the top. We had some really good bosses that we had a common story that tied together with, a boss turn around saying, no, we're not doing that, because the flip side of it, it's the risk averse guys.
Risk averse.
I always said it too. I've had a lot of phenomenal bosses. I've also had a couple really bad ones, but the bad ones, I always said that they view command as almost a threat. It's a threat to their progression. Only something bad can happen that's going to derail them. And, in the military, for those who don't know, it's like someone in your squadron or unit does something, and you're going to get fired, and you're going downhill because your people can't hold it together, whatever it might be. So guys who get in that position who are risk adverse tend to act that way. Everything is super cautious, but it's frustrating.
It is, and because you can't be that way, and that you can't be that way in combat. I mean, you're good at your job. You train. You get trained up. You're every day. At that level, we know our jobs. At that level, there's no rookie on the base at that time. And there are times where there is a rookie and you have to be careful. But even then, you got to throw them to the wolves. Sometimes you got to throw them into the fire and see how they see if they burn or they come out the other side. But that base wasn't like that. All of our whole team were senior guys. They were 40-year-old guys that have been doing it as contractors in the military for 15 plus years. I do talks on leadership, and I think that's one thing that we miss in leadership now is that decision making. The worst thing you can do is make no decision. The best thing, make a decision, and that's one thing about special operations and fast movers and even the rotary guys, especially the task force guys. Make a decision. We can adjust fire off a bad decision. It's when you just stand and do nothing, you're going to lose because you're doing absolutely nothing. And I learned that from Ranger Battalion. I learned that from, I was very blessed. My first battalion commander, and he don't remember me, I was a private, but I remember him, was Stanley McChrystal. To have that guy as my first, and he was a lieutenant colonel at the time, my first commander, and then his way of thinking, filtered down to all those junior leaders, which is, nope. Let's go. We'll figure this shit out. Let's start moving though. If we don't start, and then it comes down to door kicking in. When you're a door kicker, what's the main thing? Well, there's speed, there's surprise, violence of action. But what are you always doing? You're always finding work. You're always moving forward. And if you mess up, we'll adjust on it. But it also comes the realization that you have and infantry guys and then the special operations guys have and even mechanized. It's war. The possibility of somebody dying is there. We know this. You can't avoid it. What are you going to do? Cause more deaths because you're not going to make a decision or because you're chicken shit? No, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
so let's make a decision. And that's why when Roan said that, and he did say that night when he said, hey, just let us get eyes on. At least let us get so we know what we're up against. And we even testified to that during the select committee hearing, the first one, which was a complete farce. It was a joke. But then also Trey's the Trey hearing was, I think he could have hammered him better, but the hearing itself was pretty legitimate. We even said that. It was, hey, I got asked, like, what were you guys going to do when you went out the gate? I got asked by some aide or some counsel, and there are all these 30-somethings that sit behind the actual Congress people that are on the table when you're down in the basement of the White House. Like, what were you going to do when you got out there? It was like, well, collect intel, figure out what was going on. That's what we do. What are we going to do sitting here? Nothing at all. Yeah. And it does nothing for us. Well, and he said, and I remember his smart ass comment. He was, well, you could have died. And I said, yeah, that's what we do.
I'm paid to go do this.
Yeah, I don't get paid to, and he's still being my smart ass. I said, I don't get paid to sit in the basement of a White House and ask me questions and be a smart ass. I remember Kennedy, he was on one side, and there was another one. I think it was Michelle Bachmann. They kind of smiled and laughed a little bit, but it really pissed me off. It's like, yeah, what do you think that we sign up for? What do you think that people and that's what I wanted to say. People on the front lines, what do you think we're doing out there? That was our job. And I even said to him at that point too, during the hearing, I said, we were expendable. We knew that. We're not sitting here. And I said, I wouldn't be sitting here if it was us that died. It's that you left an ambassador that rated at a 3-star general, vice president level. You let him die. That's what I don't understand, and why that's what's inexcusable with us. And we all agree to that. Every one of us on the ground would tell you the same thing. Boone, Oz, Tig, Jack, Roan, if he was still with us, Bub, even if you're still with us, they would say the same thing. Hey, we're expendable. We're not sitting here because you left us behind. We knew that you guys were going to leave us behind. It was that you left him behind. And then you wouldn't let us go help him. And that was the big deal. I think that's why Benghazi was such a huge deal, at least to us. It wasn't because they left us. I got you, man. I'm just a ground pounder. I'm out there. I get it. I'm a dime a dozen. But you left this guy that is extremely important, and that doesn't happen. In fact, it never has happened until now. Okay, and not that diplomats haven't died, but you've never left one to die when we had the assets to help him out.
To do something about it. Yeah, to do something about it.
Yes. And so that experience in itself, just going through the hearings, it kind of made me a little sad and disappointed, because I saw the House of Cards. I saw behind the curtain. It was like the Wizard of Oz. I finally saw it, and like, gosh, man, the politicians, they really don't give two shits about us at all. Their leadership, honestly, is awful. They don't know how to lead their way of a paper bag. And man, all they really care about is re-election, and that's it. Saying what people want to hear, but they're really not going to go through with it and going to help out with it. And they're going to use every asset they can to dispel or to misrepresent the people that are actually trying to put the truth out there. And I saw that with getting questioned by the FBI. I saw that during the hearings. It's like they didn't really want to find the truth. They just or hold people accountable. They just wanted to know what we knew and how much dirt we could throw on somebody or what we knew. So, but it was an eye opener, and that's why I really have very little respect for politicians and DC in general. And that, honestly, that's why I'm not in a party. I was a Republican. I was a conservative. I was in that party, and when I saw some of them actually turn on us, which the McCains and the Rogers and the Boehners. It's like, man, screw this. I am not on any side. I was at that time. I was pretty pissed off. I was on Tanto's side. I'm on my side now. Well, screw you.
Pulling on that thread, this is the one thing, and other guys will say this. The way our country has become so polarized, it's left or right, and that's it. Yeah. And I think you nailed it. Like, one, term limits. Put term limits on. The fact that you can sit there for 5 decades, the amount of power you gain there is ridiculous. And you're focused, right? You're focused on getting reelected, which requires you to have companies donate to your campaign, right? So you're going to protect their interest as it goes along. It really spirals out of control. So like, who are you really concerned about? And I completely believe everything you're saying there, where like, honestly, you really cared about everything that happened. That was, you lived it. But inherently, most politicians, they're worried about their constituents, and are their constituents worried about what happened in Benghazi? Like, they should be, but unfortunately, like, how long did it live on the news cycle? That's the piece that's messed up. And the fact that you can't have the conversation. Yeah. Like, I don't have to be one side or the other. Like, I might go, the left this way or right this way. I mean, I fall more on the conservative side of the house, but again, like, it doesn't, it's polarizing. Everything is polarizing, which.
Well, that's we call bullshit when it's bullshit. Whether it's right or left, it doesn't make a difference. If it's bullshit, it's bullshit. If it smells like that's what it is, and I'm glad I saw it. The reason is because I know, and now I don't have to. Well, am I taking the right side? I know I don't need to take a side anymore. And that's the polarization that people haven't got away from. And I think the news, the media itself, that we need to do away with the 24/7 news cycle. We don't need that shit. That is awful. I don't care if you're a Fox lover or a CNN lover for some reason you like watching MSNBC. I mean, I can see the other two, MSN. I still can't figure that one out. But even if you do, it needs to go away. We don't need that anymore. And that power that you're talking about, especially with politicians, we've seen that with dictators, with the countries that we've went in, or with the Taliban that we went in to get out or to overthrow. And we did. We overthrew them, guys. As much as you want to church it up, we overthrew Gaddafi. We overthrew Saddam. We were helped overthrow Mubarak. Don't think we didn't have a part in that. We did. Yep. If you want to ask me, go ask Valerie Jarrett and Barack Obama. I'm sure they'll tell you. No, they probably won't, but we did. And it's control, it's power, it's leadership, and you won't let it go unless somebody overthrows you. Well, we don't do that in this country, which I'm glad we don't. We don't need that. But if you're a Nancy Pelosi or you're a Mitch McConnell or something like that, you've been in power that long, you ain't any better than a Saddam Hussein or a Gaddafi, because you're not going to relinquish that control because you love that power. You love that control. And obviously that's why they stay in for so many years. It's not about money. They have tons of money. Yep. It's that I have this power. And I'll tell you what, when you have a little bit of a taste of that power, especially with the media, how it gashes your head up. I've been there. I haven't been at that level, but the media can gas your head up. You don't want to let it go because vices become easy to obtain. And man, I'm telling you, and the devil's right there giving you everything you want, and just that ego gets fed over. And it's funny because I don't think that we're very much different than the Saddam Husseins of the world, Muammar Gaddafi's. I don't think our longstanding politicians are much different than them at all. As much as they say they are, I don't think they are. It's just luckily for us, and luckily because of the Second Amendment, and luckily because we have, I think as far as country goes, we're a pretty virtuous country. I wouldn't say we're in the top 50% of people in the country are virtuous, but we're more so than other countries that people will stand up if DC gets too out of hand. But that being said, I think the politicians push it to the limit of what they can get away with and how far they can control people. And we're kind of seeing it right now with them trying to change the Constitution or adding amendments. And I get the Constitution has been changed before. You know, we've had, 26 amendments. So I'm not a scholar on that, but we've had a lot of amendments. But I can only remember one amendment where they actually took something away, and that was prohibition. And that amendment didn't work very well. And actually, we rescinded that amendment. So I hate it when I can't stand it when people, we've changed amendments over and over. No, every amendment that we've changed, except for one, gave people more rights, gave them more freedom, except for one. And how'd that work out for us? It worked out well for Al Capone, but other than everybody else, it really didn't work out well for. Yeah, exactly. And that's a control issue, man. It all goes back to control, I hope that sound bites out there somewhere where Tanto said that our politicians aren't any better than Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi.
Well, the fact that our country got out the gate with our founding fathers who realized that you need to transfer power and not stay in is amazing because typically. I mean, every human being is susceptible to that. And the fact that they stepped aside, and it's changed over the years, but the fact that we got this far down the road because most nations don't have that. Like
they don't. Well, I think we're the only ones that actually still have the freedoms that we have. I don't think there's many countries out there where they have that. The Second Amendment, First Amendment, and the Second Amendment, especially. Or even the right to vote. No, it's still there's countries where women still have a problem voting, or if you're not within a tribe, you can't vote. So we are very blessed to have that, and you're exactly right. How the humility is what we've lost in leadership, and that's when you say people stepping aside. You had to be one humble son of a bitch to say, you know what, man, I got all this power. I'm just going to let it go. And disciplined as well. And you're right. I completely agree with you. People give our forefathers a bunch of crap. No, hell with you guys. No, wait. Our forefathers were amazing. To write that in there, just have the foresight to see that. And people in Canada, they love it. They're jealous of us right now because they don't have that. And I know they want. I wish they did. But our forefathers, to be able to do that and write that and see that foresight, but then also have that. We don't want to lead forever.
Yeah.
we need to go back to that. I think I would be a great amendment to the Constitution if we needed to make it an amendment or a law or whatever we need to do to give the term limits. I said that 6 years ago. Term limits for all Congress, for all senators and representatives, for all Congress. Term limits. Get them out of there, because leaders themselves, I think we learned that from the military especially, is the turnovers that we do when a new leader would come in. Well, the unit itself is still going to be successful because you have good leaders that are going to step aside and they're going to give a good turnover to that leader coming up. Well, why can't you do that in Congress, guys? Oh, if I'm not here for 20 years, it's going to fail. No. If you're a good leader, you will turn over what you've done to that person coming up, and they'll take it on to that next level. That's how the military works. That's how Ranger Battalion. I learned so much just watching leaders and how that worked. Because our platoon leader, when he makes O3, doesn't mean he's going to be a captain at Ranger Battalion. He's going to go somewhere else, and he may come back. But to see the transfer, and really to see it seamless, and still see the big machine still be successful, extremely successful, based off the good turnovers that were given back and forth, and being taught turnovers when I became an officer in the military of how to properly do a change of command. We have the ability to do that, obviously, and believe me, all us knuckle draggers are not the sharpest tools in the shed, but we can do it. Right. Why can't all you smart kids do it? All you Ivy League grad, all you doctorates and Juris Doctorate, why can't you guys do it? Well, because you don't want to do it, because you don't want to give up that power. But yep. I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I think it needs to still be in there. We need to get those term limits in there. And I know we're talking about Benghazi, but really it does flow into all that. I think if we didn't have people that had so much control or so much ego in the office when that was going on, I really do believe we would have got some help. We had some people with some humility, some virtue, some faith, and just a good heart. It would have happened. Because I know there's people out there, obviously, like yourself. I know there are many troops that had those good hearts that were willing to come to us, that were just left in the dark until they found out on the news the next day. And, we talked about it in our podcast, but I do know that as a fact as well, from the Marines, the MEU that was in the Mediterranean, the ones that were in Spain, the 10 Special Forces Group guys that were coming back in, that were going from the Joint Operation Command and pre-positioning, to even the Delta Squadron that was training out in that area. And it started to move to us too. But it's the leaders that don't have that integrity or heart anymore, man. And I don't know how to get it. I really wish I knew how to say, this is the way we're going to get it back. I guess the best way again would be, if you gave them term limits, well, this is what you got. Get everything you can in at that point, and then you're out of there.
Well, I've talked about this too on other podcasts, because the problem we have, I think, as a nation, we can't plan more than 6 months, 2 years out, best case scenario.
Best case.
And then, if you look at near peer threats, like, I don't know, maybe something that's out off to the west, they have a 40, 100-year plan. I mean, everything is singular focused. It's what we used to do. It's what we used to be, where, hey, this is a nation, this is where we want to go, and this is how we're going to do it. But now it's, all these singular entities, whatever group that might be, but people focusing on their interests and their needs over
the individual interest of the needs over the countries, over the group. And that's how teams fail. Obviously, 100%. Everybody knows that from the Pop Warner League on up. That you learn that from the get-go. There's no I in team. I mean, the old cliche. Well, that's spot on. But a team is not going to be successful unless you think about others and put others before yourselves. I've said that before too. I said that on one of the Paramount things, and I really meant that. And I get that from the John 15:13, which the military serves from. I mean, that's one of the verses in the Bible that the military pulls from. It's that love is no greater than this, that a man lay down his life for his friend. Well, that's putting others before yourself, sacrificing for others, and that's not what we have in our leadership in DC. And obviously, that wasn't what we had as a whole, that we were trying to get to help us that night on that following morning. But we had it on that team, and it's still. Even saying all the negatives, I still would go back there at that moment, because having that focus, and in that moment, that 911 call, worst case scenario, there's 6 of us, and not seeing one guy flinch And we didn't all like each other too. That was another thing. Oz and I didn't really care for each other. Roan tolerated me, but he was so upset with me all the time because I always got us in trouble, and he was always having to cover for me. But when shit hit the fan, it was it was looking at each other's eyes. We're Roan's going, "Hey, you guys, we don't need to go. We don't have to go." And just hearing the silence, nobody said a word. We're just looking at him. Everybody's just looking at him, and I can just the guys are standing around there looking at Roan, and it just like it's quiet. But in that quiet that everybody's saying, "Are you kidding me? No, we're going." And then everybody just sprinted and started doing what we needed to do to prep to go. And that to me is the perfect world right there. That's the perfect team scenario, and that's the perfect way of thinking, where you're willing to put your life down for someone else's, and everybody else is thinking the same thing. And it's a split-second thought that nobody needs to question. It's just, yep,
doing a good job.
And I go back to DC. We don't have those kind of people in
well, DC. I mean, the comparison
as a whole.
Yeah, the comparison be made, I think, as a nation. So World War II, right? Everyone was in it to win it. And then maybe foreshadowing here, which doesn't give you a warm fuzzy, but when COVID hits and people are hoarding toilet paper, and whatever else was like this,
toilet paper, hand sanitizer, soap, and there was one other thing too.
Yeah, the thing, like, that wasn't even, we didn't have like a real problem. Like, I mean, COVID, all right, so we didn't have an existential threat where the nation was done and you're melting extra pots and pans to make guns and stuff. Like, could you imagine today if you asked people like, "Hey, we need you to turn in your extra metal items so we can melt it down to make planes and stuff?" Like, we're a bunch of individuals.
I could not see. I couldn't see John Kerry melted down his freaking plane, or you would like to think, on the other flip side, would Donald Trump do the same thing? Would he not melt? I don't know if he would. That's the question. That's the thing. We shouldn't even be asking that. It's like, it should be, hell yeah, that he's in charge. Of course he would. He'd lead by example. Of course he would. He'd lead by example. Of course Hillary would do that. She'd give all her cars and planes, and Bill and her would. They'd lead by example, but I would put dollars to donuts that they wouldn't. And that's what's sad is that shouldn't even be a question in itself. But that also is a testament to that we still have that hope, because that generation, that gene is still in us somewhere. It's still there. I mean, it was passed down generation. I love where I live in Kansas, because small town Kansas, because that feel is still out here. That feel of, hey, we're going to help. We'll help each other. If something goes bad, everybody puts everything down and is going to help out. And it's still a good feeling to live out here with that. You got to brave the winters, which are pretty brutal in the Midwest. Anywhere in the Midwest, until you get down past Dallas, the winters can get pretty brutal. But that thing is we're the minority. That's not how the majority of people think is that. But again, I still not on a negative, but ending on a positive. That gene is still there in us. It came from that greatest generation. We have that in there. We just have to maybe turn off social media too much. Listen to the podcast, especially this one.
Yeah, definitely this one. Don't sit. I think you're right. And so here, and to be fair, right, and this is another thing I've talked about. We live in the age of social media. You mentioned the 24/7 news network. Yeah. That stuff is being manipulated. If this technology existed, during the Cold War, amazing tool for both the United States and the Soviet Union to manipulate a populace. I mean, it's happening today. Yeah. People, if they aren't aware, like, there's some great articles out there that's happening in Ukraine. Lex Friedman was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about the Ukrainians and the Russians. Neither one, like, the Russians think that the West, it's all Fox News, and the Ukrainians don't believe there's any propaganda. If you don't think you're being fed propaganda, you're an idiot. And the tools that are available for businesses, social media companies, nations, and other parties to, feed ads. If it's feeding you and me, we're taking your gun ads to get us riled up, that's what they're going to do. And then the flip side of it, if you're an anti-gun person, they're feeding you all these massive shootings and things like that. It's there, and the tools are out there to meet the problem. So I say that because maybe there's a lot of noise. There's so much noise that at some point this
you got to turn it off. Well, and that's it. You got to kill the noise. I don't watch the news anymore. I haven't done a Fox or CNN interview, and I've been asked, and I've told them no, I don't do it. In 2017, I tried to commit suicide in 2017. A lot of people that listen, I've read The Ranger Way, know this, but I was so angry, and I was and I was estranged from my wife. I was divorced from her. We did remarry. We're back together, and of course, great. It's probably the smartest decision I've ever made. But a lot of that was because of the noise, and I was a big part of that. And it doesn't make you happy. It may make you money. I had more money then than I do now, but I was the most miserable person in the world, and it's because I was in that noise, and all that does is piss you off, and it helps other people, especially those networks, make a ton of money, but it does nothing for that person, especially their soul. And I would look back now, it did nothing for the country. I wasn't helping anyone. I was helping a side. Again, back to the sides. I'm helping a side, but is that really helping bringing this country together? And isn't that what I tried to sign up for, was to protect everyone, not a side? Not saying that I don't still have my opinions. I do. Yeah, we do. But there is a time where the noise has to be turned off, and the problem is a lot of people can't turn that noise off anymore because it's just like a drug. It's like crack. It's cocaine. I gotta have it. I gotta have my Tucker Carlson. I gotta have my Anderson Cooper. I gotta have my Jimmy. Like, no, you don't, dudes. Turn it off. You don't need it all. In fact, I enjoy more sitting on my front porch listening to the birds. Remember when we used to do that? Remember we used to go outside and play catch with our remember when jumping on the trampoline with my boy? It's 103 degrees out. I go for a run. I come back. I jump on the trampoline with my boy in the sprinkler instead of watching the. Remember when we used to do that kind of stuff? And now it's no. I need to have a side. I need to believe in this or that or what. Believe in God. Believe in the Constitution. Believe in your family. You're good to go. That's all you need to believe in. And but you're all right on the propaganda side too. I mean, who perfected that, especially when we were in? Well, Al Qaeda and the terrorists perfected that propaganda, and they utilized it to their advantage. You 100%. Remember those recruiting videos that are cutting people's heads off? I remember the dump truck bomb that they did. It was one of the first big ones they did where it blew up. I forget the name of the hotel. We actually responded to that. I was in Baghdad when that one happened. And we had just been in the hotel the day before, and then we came back to get all the Americans out of it. But those were, honestly, when we're looking at the videos, they were pretty cool.
I mean, did you see the ISIS videos?
Like the
ISIS video, like, I mean, you're talking drone shots, like flying down. I mean, expert execution when it came to the propaganda machine, obviously
recruitment. And so to think that it's not used for by the wrong people, or whoever you want to term is the wrong person, or it's not used for the wrong means, well, bull crap, it's not. Our enemies perfected that. In fact, 2003 was when they first started doing it, and it just all that. Zakari was awesome at it. He's the one that him and his group when AQI first started. But yeah, the ISIS videos took it to the next level because they had the medium got better.
Yep.
Obviously, from MySpace to Facebook. But you're also right on the sides, brother. It's funny. Wars are always started because both sides think they're right, and I always find the contradiction in that because, I was part of that as well. And I always, I'm part of a war because I think we're doing the right thing, and I think we're right. But I tell you, about 2008, 2009, I really started to doubt that. And there's a scene in the movie, and it's how we all felt. I'm glad we got it in there because we all felt that way that night in 2012. All of us have been doing it for so long, but you see Jack and Roan sitting in the movie. It's in the movie, and they're talking to each other. And that particular conversation, it might have happened, it might not have, they were up there, but what he said was what we all felt. We wanted to get that in the script. It was, man, and they're talking about how Jack had just found out his wife was pregnant. That was spot on. He just did. And he had just done a video for her, and he had to run downstairs. That's exactly what happened. I remember that.
Crazy, yeah.
But him and, Roan, actually, his first kid, he had, and he got divorced, and somebody else raised his kid. This was the original GW, when GWOT started, when Global War on Terror started. And we all felt that way. It was, it was like, hey, we all used to do this for something bigger, which we meant we always do this for bigger. It was bigger than us. We're doing this for our country. We're doing this for our brothers. And I remember always thinking, man, that something bigger's gone now. And we all felt that way. And I actually almost start crying because I choked up because it really did feel that way when that night happened, and then it even more so when I started to see what really was going on behind the curtain. But it was like, man, when I first went into Iraq, hey, protect America, let's go. But by 2012, after going to multiple places in Afghanistan and Iraq and Yemen and Libya and all these other places, and then even doing shady shit in South America and Central America, and even doing anti-piracy work off the Aden, Somalia, and all that crazy. It really was anymore that something bigger, that patriotism, that I'm doing it because my leaders have my back. It's what we need to do because our foreign policy, we need to protect our borders, we need to protect America. That wasn't there on 9/11/2012. It was gone, and I'm glad we put that in the movie. And every time I see it, I do almost cry because it kind of hurts a little bit. She's like, man, you go into what all veterans have at some point, a little bit of self-doubt. Like, man, I missed all this time with my kids for what? But I get back to that. I don't let that take me down that demon hole that I used to, because it was essential. I'm glad I did what I did. I did miss a lot. And now I can at least rationalize it that I didn't do it for my country. Even though I am very patriotic, I love the United States. I did it because I didn't. Hey, if anybody did it and says it wasn't enjoyable, they didn't enjoy it, they're lying to you. I enjoyed it, but I did love the camaraderie. I loved the brothers and sisters that we had next to us at the time. We had some great targeters that were at the agency that I loved to death too. We had one of the best targeters that I ever worked with in Benghazi at the time, and she was awesome, and I knew she had my back as well if the shit hit the fan. So it was just amazing feeling. But that's something bigger of I'm doing it for my country. By 2012, that wasn't there. It was gone.
I'm a lot slower than you because it took me till August of last year to realize that. So, and
too much G-forces on your head.
I'm just not that smart. So yeah, it took a while, but it is an interesting thread. I've talked to a lot of buddies about this. Your story and mine, obviously apples and oranges. I can't compare to like what you've been through.
Well, I can't compare to what you've been. Come on, man. I told you this. I throw up my flight suit. If you've even tried, even 1G, I'd be like, no, I'm not, this is not for me.
But, it's when 9/11 happened, I mean, the drums were beaten. Everyone was patriotic, and it was time to go back and get the people, who killed a bunch of innocent Americans. And then it just slowly over time devolved. I mean, we kicked the hornet's nest, and like there was no going back once the hornet's nest has been kicked. And now this you can't put it back. Humpty Dumpty cannot be put back together again.
Exactly.
And it's a big, and like this will be a problem that we deal with forever. But a lot of people have made a lot of money off this, and I mean I agree. Like there's some good things that were done. There are obviously some bad things that were done. A lot of people are not coming home. That a lot of lives are changed forever. Kids without family, husbands, without wives without husbands. I mean, you can go on, and that's part again that kind of took me. It's like we all knew what was going to happen with Afghanistan. Like that was a foregone conclusion. The strategic plan of that withdrawal was abysmal. How that even got passed, like. Again, the enemy always gets to vote no matter what the plan is. And at a minimum, like if that was your plan, one, don't give up your two most strategic and fortified positions and fall back to the hodgepodge civilian airport to do your mass, military and civilian and non-combatant evacuation.
Wow.
I don't know anything about it, but I can tell you like that's not how you do things. And you probably could find any 03, any 01, 02.
You could find that's what I was saying. You could find an 01 to do it right out of IOBC or infantry officers basically that could plan that better than that quagmire. And that just again verified to me how inept DC and the leadership is, and military leadership, how it's gone from having actual military leaders to now you just have politicians trying to get out there, so when they're done with this, they got that multi-million-dollar book deal. And hey, I'm not going to complain about book deals. I am the pot calling the kettle black there, but still, I didn't do it to sacrifice thousands of lives, man.
Well, and that plan, and I don't have any inside knowledge on this, but the planners are going to be 04s and 05s, sitting wherever. and then the plan is going to get passed up and vetted, and then ultimately it's going to be a political decision that, hey, no, like we got to give these. I mean, you give Kandahar and you give Bagram back. Well, I don't know how fast the Taliban recaptured those, but it was probably within about 5 minutes.
It was pretty quick. Yep.
And it's all political. And if Trump said, "Hey, we're getting out of there," Biden is now dealing with that. To be fair, right? Like, hey, this was the plan, but we're adjusting the plan. Like, we're still, we can go on and on.
With that too, I did, and I'm not a Trumper. I think he did great. I think he did great things with the economy. I really did. I mean, my 401k went up. My 401k under Biden has just completely dropped the tank. So at least in that aspect, the finances would. But I also didn't like. I just hated his. I just wish he would shut up. I just didn't like this. But I did remember that I did hear, and I listen to a lot of talk radio when I'm driving I do corporate speaking, public speaking. I usually drive there. No offense against you guys. I just don't like flying. Hate it. But he did have. I remember hearing it, and it was Trump had a plan, and I remember hearing it that he said, "Yeah, it's gonna have to be a limited withdrawal, little by little by little," and that was out of his mouth. It was just a soundbite that I heard listening to some AM radio talk show. I don't remember who it was. I didn't do a lot of research on it. I just want to make sure that I put that out there. But from what I understood and what he said it was from his mouth. It was a soundbite from him speaking at one of a rally or something he was doing. He said, "We have to get out of Afghanistan, and it's going to be a planned withdrawal. It may take up to 6 months to get us out of there, little by little. Military personnel first, ANA, or anybody that was friendlies or allies, and then civilians." And so that's out there in the internet. He said it. I mean, I heard it on the radio. It wasn't like I read it on it was. So that plan was there, and honestly, it sounded like a good plan. I mean, that's what you do. Meticulous. Get them out little by little. Equipment, get it out. Not just, hey, we're leaving, closing shop, we're getting out of here. Taliban, whatever you want. Take whatever you want. All these night vision, all that. Now, here, take it. Give it to the Chinese, Iranians. It was just so inept. And then what bothered me, the righteous kill. When they did that ISR strike with no intel, no eyes on the ground, and they killed all the civilians. And that general, was it General? What the hell is his name?
McKenzie?
Was it the other? One of the M's. I can't remember who. But he
might not be right.
We had this righteous. It was a righteous kill. I wouldn't say that. I honestly despise terrorists, but you don't say that. None of us have said.
You're taking a life. Yeah, you're taking a life, which.
What kind of scumbag says it's a righteous kill? What are we on the movies? What is this, Predator and Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back? What are we? It was disgusting, and it also another verified how inept and terrible and just unprofessional our leadership is. And that was the ranking general of the army, or maybe it was SecDef. We'd have to look at that again to see. I mean, research to see who said it, but it really disgusted me, but it also disgusted me that, again, how far we've fallen, at least in the military circles, as far as leadership goes. And how did it get okayed starting at that level from the 04 to 05? Because it had to go through multiple checks. And how did it get there? And then it said, yeah, this sounds like a great plan. A 2-year-old could have saw it wasn't a good plan. A lieutenant could have saw it wasn't a good plan.
This is not going to end well. Like that's the basic thing. And if this is the plan, like I said, the enemy always gets a vote. That was a poor plan. If that's what you're going to go do with, it wasn't going to survive first contact with enemy, but then reassess. And do something different, because this is obviously not working. And then fortune piece, I had my good buddy Carl Miller on the podcast back in February. He is going through school. He's up in DC right now, but he spent 2 years with the Afghans at 2 separate points, flying with their Air Force and training them. So, I mean, he has very close relationships. He was a squadron commander out there with a lot of senior level Afghan Air Force guys. And I mean, no kidding. He is moving across the country. He kind of starts a WhatsApp or a Facebook group initially with these different advisors he'd worked with over the years. And it's all open source, essentially, just trying to figure out who's who. And he's got stories like working this guy from up near Maji Sharif down to get him out. And Carl tells the story of this guy makes it to, I think, the North Gate, and the guy, the Afghan he's trying to get out, hands the phone to some Marine, young Marine, which, I was like, the fact that Marine even took that phone, and Carl says, "Hey, look, you don't know me, you don't owe me anything, but this guy has been a great asset to our country, yada, yada, yada. If you please get him through the gate, he's on the list to get out," and got him out. But the problem with all of this, right, is undoubtedly we're going to have one. Afghanistan should have been like what we do in other places, like very surgical that you don't hear about, neither here nor there. But nonetheless, we left so many people high and dry and burned bridges. Like, who would ever want to go work with you again? Why? Because at some point, we're not going to be there. We saw that with the doc that helped us get Bin Laden. What happened to him? We left him high and dry. That was a kind of a running. It was a dark joke, but it was a running joke in the GRS community when we were there, because we did that all the time, and we would talk in cars like, "Who's going to trust us now?" Nobody's going to want to work with us because they help us and we don't do shit for them. We don't help them out. We don't get them out. We don't give them anything. And it's like we're basically just burning. That's what we said. We're burning every bridge. It's a joke, and it was almost laughable because that was going on behind the scenes when I was working GRS from 2006 to 2012. In 2013, I went back to Yemen in 2013 after Benghazi. But that was what we did. That was the MO, man. So the whole world seeing it then, that had been going on for years. And I wouldn't bet against that it still isn't going on 100%. For some of the assets. And it's like, why do you think we aren't trusted in the world? Why do you think there's an American? I don't trust that American. He'll leave you up high and dry. Well, because we do. I mean, we do. At least at that level. Right. The unfortunate piece at the tactical level, the one where you're the guy working with an interpreter and embedded, like you would do anything for that person. But as it moves up to the strategic level, and you're relying upon people at that level to open up doors and facilitate, the promises, move them and their family out, that you need them to sign the paper and do whatever, it doesn't happen. That, you burn bridges, to say the least.
And I equate it to, I used to say this, we're like a bad frat boy coming to somebody else's party at a house. We go and we party at this house all night, and then we leave it the next morning and say, "Yeah, it's your mess. You guys clean it up. We're not going to help you." I mean, that's kind of how we were doing it since Afghanistan on. Every place we've been going to. So obviously nobody trusts us. But I have my, I have the same kind of stuff. I've helped two guys get out. My two, one I worked with in Kabul, and the other one in Kandahar. I'm trying to still, I should say. The one in Kabul I managed to get out, and I wrote him a letter and I vouched for him. So he got on in his offense, I should say, or defense, whatever you want to call it. He got on it real quick. It was right in the beginning, and he says, "I'm trying to get me and my girls out." And he worked with me at NDS, and I wrote him a letter and sent it to him, and that he gave it to the right person. He got out, and he's in the Netherlands right now.
Nice.
The other one in Kandahar, and I'm trying actually to get him in the United States. There's a group that I'm working with in the United States it's a private group, obviously, though. It's not the government. It's a private group full of contractors and pilots like us that actually come together and form an organization, a foundation to do that. So I'm working on that. Yeah, the one in Kandahar, though, I got to also do my due diligence. We've got to do that as well. I know he did work with me. He looks a little different, but I finally, it took me a while to validate it. But he's still there. It's not just a letter anymore. I can't just write him a letter and say, "Yeah, I worked with me here." Now I've got to find a way to find someone like your buddy that I can call, and it's not easy to do, and it's sad, man. It hurts a lot of us because I became friends with a lot of those guys, and they were there for me if I needed them, and I was there for them, and we just left them. It's like me. It would be like you leaving me, or me, honestly, to me, or me leaving you there. So
100%.
So and the politicians, they just do not. Gosh, one time we could just drop them off and say, "Okay, here, you're on your own. Figure it out." And just leave them there for 3 or 4 days, and
see what happens.
And not even for a year, not even for a month, not even for a week. 3 or 4 days, and I think their mindsets would change quite a bit. But until it affects them and gets into their bubble, it's never going to change. They live in a bubble.
Yeah, it's like the thing. Until you walk a mile in someone's shoes.
Yeah.
And again, I said this I don't know when the podcast recorded last night. I don't know when it's going to release, but again, everyone's worried about the nearest alligator to their boat, and they could care less about the alligator that's getting ready to chew up your boat, and you. So
I like that.
It's easy.
I'm stealing that, dude. I've never heard that. I'm going to use that one. That's awesome. I love it. But you're spot on, brother. You're spot on.
And it's sad. So, hey, I started this off. I was telling you, hey, I got a Patreon question. We never got to that. I'm going to ask it here in a minute. But first, because, this has been a great conversation. How did you get into contracting? What was that kind of like transition? And obviously you were at it for a long time and a lot of
just lucky, I guess. I'm Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. I'm just lucky,
yeah.
I guess.
Well, I would say you have a terrible travel agent, first and foremost.
That whole story leading up to contract, that's a whole story within itself. In fact, the Ranger Way is pretty much that story even before I started contracting. But contracting, what happened is I had gotten kicked out of the military the first time I was in. I shouldn't say kicked out, but I got discharged for something I shouldn't have done. I was very blessed, though. I did get an honorable discharge that I didn't deserve. But God was looking down on me, and I had a tremendous commander and a tremendous first sergeant from 2nd Ranger Battalion. I had an RE3 code, which means that it was going to be as hard as hell just to try to re-enlist. But I fought for 2 years, did what I needed to do, got the psyche valves I needed to get if that tells you anything about what I did to get booted out. But and I went and re-enlisted back into the military, and I did it all again, and did infantry, airborne, Ranger twice, and everything was going great, and I actually became an officer. So I went from being a humiliated dirtbag getting RFS'd from Ranger Battalion to getting my officer's commission, because I re-enlisted. I had a master's degree at the time, but I felt like I needed to re-enlist again because I didn't really finish what I started the first time. And I got sick. I didn't know I was sick. I was out on a training op in Fort Benning, Georgia, and it's hot and and sweaty, and I'm not feeling real good. Of course, I'm drinking a little too much because work hard, play hard. It's just how it was. And I sharded. I sharded my pants. I did. I let one go and I sharded, but it felt weird. It just didn't feel right. And I remember for some reason I took my hand and I went back and I brought it back out, and it was sticky, and I could tell there was blood and mucus there. Long story. They rushed me to Martin Army Hospital, and they found out I had a severe case of ulcerative colitis, or they couldn't figure out if it was Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis because my whole lower intestines and my colon looked like road rash, and I was discharged from the military under medical. I have no complaints. I was in bad shape. I had let but you know the deal. It's like my stomach hurts. I'm tired. I'm fatigued. Oh, I must be a Ranger then, right? That's just how
push through it. Yeah.
And I just pushed through it too long, and it did some severe damage. And for the next year, I was on my death. Literally, I'd lost. I looked like a Ranger School graduate. Lost 30 pounds. I couldn't eat anything. And every day I would just try to get up and figure out what I could eat. But I would still work hard. And I remember just not giving up. And I would do a push-up every day. And I just got stronger and stronger. And then after a year, I got a phone call from Blackwater Security. It was 2003. And then right after that, like 10 minutes later, I got a call from Triple Canopy Security, or Triple Canopy. And that time, those organizations, I had a lot of respect for them now, looking how they are now compared to then. Because you had the Eric Prince at the Blackwater, and I like Eric. I do. I know he's gone off the rails a little bit right now, but back in those days, and he loves military. He does. He loved his contract. He took real good care of us. And then on the Triple Canopy side, you had Lee Van Arsdale, who was running that company. And, he's a Delta legend. That dude, and he ran Triple Canopy extremely well. Well, I got a call from him, and Blackwater said, "Hey, do you want to be a contractor in Iraq?" And I just said, I don't build houses, guys. I don't know what the hell. No, you got the wrong guy, because I didn't know what a contractor was.
It wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was like the Bremer detail was just starting to get going, and that was from the Blackwater guys. Triple Canopy was supplementing. DynCorp had been doing stuff for years, but that was always police training, and I didn't know nothing about DynCorp. And that was in Kosovo, and I didn't really care about Kosovo going there. Yeah. So I never paid attention. But they said, no. We got your name from a fellow Ranger. They said, "Do you know this guy right here?" And I said, "Yeah, I served with them." And he had given him my name, and with my Ranger background, and then I was with 19 Special Forces Group for a little while, I had the 6-year special ops that they were requiring to be a contractor at that time. And they said, "Hey, we want you to go to Iraq and be a military contractor and do this, this, and this. And I said, oh, that sounds awesome. And then they said, and we're going to pay you this much money. And it was like a cartoon where my eyes went from, it's like my wife.
What?
Like what? Because we were getting, I'm gonna lie, we were getting paid a lot. I mean, it's a lot of money till that ID or that VBID goes off. Then it's not enough. But it was, we were getting paid. And for me, I was out of work. I'm living off a medical retirement. I'm sick as a dog. I'm not working anywhere because I can't even go at 30 minutes without shitting myself. I can't eat anything. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is a godsend. It's like, this is awesome. And of course, Blackwater called me first, so I told Blackwater yes instead of Triple Canopy. It had nothing to do. I thought they were both tremendous organizations. But I do remember I went to my wife and I said, hey, don't divorce me, but I'm going to go to North Carolina tomorrow. I'm going to start training for 3 weeks and I'm going to Iraq. And she's like, okay, all right. And I was off and running, man. I mean, it was it. So really, I didn't pick contracting. It kind of found me. That's why I have a strong, even though I have a potty mouth from hell, I am a very devout Christian. I believe in God. I believe in faith, and I believe the paths are there. And I do because of things that have happened to be bad and good things that I knew that they were meant to happen. And that was something else. It just out of the blue. The next 10, 11 years, I was contracting, not just with Blackwater. I was contracting with different agencies, private organizations doing anti-kidnapping stuff in South America. Like I said, I got to fight pirates off the coast of Somalia, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then, but in the middle of all that, it was always GRS was the staple. I did some State Department at the beginning because GRS didn't exist at the time. So that was the Bremer details. That was the State Department CPA contracts. That was like the Blackwater heyday of, and then when that started to get bigger and the requirements to make those contracts started to be from 6 years special ops to 3 years to 1 year to 6 years infantry to did you drive down buy up one time? All right, yeah, you're good. Come on. That's when a lot of us started to bounce to the special contracts, the OGA contracts, and I did, and I went there and did my GRS stuff, but between those GRS trips, I would do private stuff. I would go to Dubai and do some executive protection, or I go to Qatar, and I remember protecting Rob Lowe in Qatar. Going to the Doha Film Festival and just making sure Rob Lowe got to work, and then doing the anti-piracy work or doing some executive protection in the States or going to the anti-kidnapping. So
who was the anti-piracy work?
I was through Nexus.
Sorry,
Nexus was the group. We were working with Pacific Oak Marine and Maersk, and it was Nexus, and then Trident's group came on after. Nexus was the first one. We were the first 7. I'm proud to say that because it was Captain Phelps got attacked, and then I was on a ship the next week, and it was awesome until I got caught in one squall, and then I was like, nope. There's a reason I didn't join the Navy. Nope. We stopped in Durban.
Hard pass.
Yeah. So I did it for about 6-7 months, and then I was like, Durban. Like, guys, I'm sorry. That's my last trip. I would rather get shot at than go fight 30-foot swells in this little ass boat anymore that has a top speed of 16 knots. Nope. I'm done. Yeah. But Rat's team, they came on later and they were the competitor with Nexus. So Nexus and Trident had the two big contracts, and then the Israelis had their own security. But it was a really cool experience, but it also was kind of heartbreaking because on those shipping lanes are like highways. So when a ship's attacked, you can hear it on the radio because all those captains, they do try to help each other out. So we'd hear a ship getting attacked, and normally the pirates were smart. They didn't want to die. So if it was American flag ship or an Israeli flag ship, they usually knew there was going to be security, and usually we were outside, you could see us. So they normally would just divvy off and attack the Filipino ship or the Korean ship or the German ship, and they would be calling for help. And it's hard when that's your job is to protect people and you've done it for years, that to hear that on the radio and the captain saying no, because they're not going to lose millions of dollars worth of cargo turning a ship around so you can go help them. And you just have to, you just have to hear the cries on the radio and just hope that whoever military assets in the area gets to them quick enough. But it was kind of heartbreaking. And I remember when that would happen, I would just walk out of the captain's area and I'd walk out to the side so I just couldn't hear it. But But the experience itself was really, it was cool. I'm not gonna say it was. And being on the sea, and I always would pick the ships either in the morning or at night, so I could see the sun come up and then it go down. And when the water was flat, especially in the Red Sea, or on the parts of the Indian Ocean, it was beautiful, man. It was just gorgeous, awesome.
It's funny. Yeah, I just flew down the coast of Eastern Africa on my other job, but you look at, I got a sunrise, which I mean, it was like pristine, just most scenic and beautiful thing you ever see. But then
it is
you're like, well, there's Mogadishu right off.
I know, that's the thing.
Well, maybe it's too bad. It's too bad.
Yeah, it looks beautiful until you get really close to it. That's so cool that you're still flying there. Durban and Cape Town, I thought were gorgeous, at least parts of it. Durban's pretty dangerous, some of the places in town, but you're right, man. It's especially in a float when you go in there and you're going into dock, especially in Durban when you see it. Until you would get in the city and you kind of see the shade areas, it does look beautiful. It is a beautiful sight to see, especially when you're getting out of rough waters and you come in that calmness and you're just like, man, wow, this is all right. This is cool. All right, but I can't imagine flying there.
Well, it's better just to look at it from 30,000 feet than down there off the ground, not where you want to be in life. It just sounds, based on some of the stories I've heard you say, is like, Matt, but you know what? I think I'm good. But it goes back to, I spent a little time in the Horn of Africa. Probably about the same time you were there, just sitting, alert for some guys who are doing things. Yeah. And it gives you a true appreciation for how good we really have it. There are a lot of things that this country could do better, whatever your argument might be, but we got it pretty good. I'm not worried about someone kicking my door down, dragging me out in the street and murdering me, nor am I really worried about running water or electricity.
Or getting dysentery brushing my teeth because I forgot to use bottled water. Yeah. I mean, how much of a pain in the ass that got to be? Just having to remember to always have enough bottled water, and then coming off an op and you want to brush your teeth and it's late and you forgot to go stock your bottled water, so you got to go run out. I mean, just the normal shit that we take for granted here, that unless you've done it, you don't realize how kind of a pain in the ass it comes to be. And you're like, oh, you're complaining, Kris. But that's why we have it so good, is because I can't complain about not having to using bottled water to brush my teeth so I don't get sick as a dog, because I don't have to do that back home. How lucky you think we have it here? That's how lucky we have it, man. Can you imagine if people had to do that every day in their lives? They'd lose their minds.
There's some places I go that I won't eat fruits and vegetables because, when they wash them, like, even though they wash them, like, there's still stuff in the water. And you're like, no, like, I don't feel like having my insides on the outside. Oh. So I'll just skip it. And that's, again, not saying it doesn't happen here, right? But predominantly, you're pretty good going to the grocery store and being able to buy something that you want, and you have 10 different options of that thing you want, so you can pick your brand and go. So, like, we got it pretty good. I want to jump to this real quick. Whoa, actually, so first, this is what I should have done way back when.
It's my fault.
Wearing the Battleline Podcast shirt.
It's my fault, dude. I'm sorry.
It's perfect. The intro is going to have it, so all those who've gotten this far into the podcast, they're already going to have heard it. But when I was on your podcast, on the Battleline Podcast last week, you asked me about Top Gun. Have you seen Top Gun yet?
I still haven't seen Top Gun yet. I haven't got a chance yet. Man, I know. I will. We will. We've had some traveling with the family going on, so it just hasn't been the priority to get. But it's. In my defense, everything that has been going on has been family related that we just haven't had a chance. And my 6-year-old doesn't want to go see it. So, we got to figure out when Top Gun and Jurassic Park, or maybe Buzz, is at the movie at the same time, and I can go and we can go. So, but I definitely want to, because I've heard nothing but outstanding things about Top Gun. I've heard nothing but great things. So.
We took my 7-year-old to it. We're like, hey man, this is a big deal. There's gonna be some bad language in it. So, you're gonna hear it. That's life. You're gonna hear it, but we don't want to hear it out of you. But we're like leaving the movie theater, and his thing is like, I can't wait to be a fighter pilot because I can use bad words. That was his takeaway. He wants to get shot at in a fighter jet so he can be defensive and he can use bad language. I'm like, well, of all the things to take away from the movie, I'm glad you took away that. So, all right, bud.
That's awesome. See, that's a great American kid right there. That's America right there. That's
right, America.
America.
It's it's funny what they latch onto, but he was just like, yes, like I'm like, hey, he's getting shot at by, like SA whatevers are on the hilltop. This is not where you want to be in life, but hey, go for it.
I'm see if my 6-year-old, I can't talk him into seeing it, but we will. And me and Mama maybe should have a date night. We'll go see it. It always happens that way too. I always want to go see a movie, and then stuff starts popping in, or family stuff starts coming out, and by the time let's go, it's outside. It's out of the theater. Okay. And living in Fort Scott, Kansas, where we're at, it's not like it's easy to go down to find another movie theater somewhere.
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
to be honest, like I'm trying to think of the last movie, if you exclude the whole COVID deal, like the last time we went to see a movie in the theaters, like it'd been a while. Like we just don't go. I just wait for it to come out on TV. And a lot of them now you can like get them within same time or like a week later. Like, why wouldn't I just do that? And I don't have to mess with people in dirty movie theaters. But Top Gun, I will say, is worth it. And I've heard a lot of people go back. They've gone back 2 or 3 times, which is kind of cool because I think they did a really good job. We could talk tactics here and there, but I wanted to jump to this.
You're gonna have a little bit on that. You're on the tack. No, you're gonna have a little bit on any movie, any military movie, even ours. That there's going to be some tactics that you just. I mean, it just happens. You try to get it right, but you got actors doing it, and you got CGI. So, and I wouldn't know stuff you'd see. I had no idea. I mean, unless you told me, that's kind of outlandish. I would have no clue. So,
palm up, palm down. I wouldn't catch it, know. But it's devil's in the details. But it's one of those things. You got to give them some. They have to have some liberty to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Storytelling. I want to jump into this.
Okay.
This is how far we've gotten, but it jumps back into Benghazi. So if those have seen 13 Hours,
sure.
And I've heard you say this in another podcast, so I know it's true. The attire you're wearing on that night.
Yeah.
But I had a Patreon supporter who asked. He jumped into late into the fight here, but he goes, I absolutely love the idea of you running around Benghazi in the streets in your Mickey Mouse t-shirt and shorts with your trusty AR. His question was, if you could have had any other piece of gear or ammo that you could have had that night, what would it have been?
My 203. I wish I had a GLM actually mounted on my M4. So I had a 40. I had plenty of gear. I had a Mark 46 here.
Yeah.
And I had a nutsack on it, a starter drum on it, which we call the nutsack. It has like 100 rounds. And then I had another 200 round drum around here like this. But it started to come out, so it was kind of Rambo style with the links. But I just, because it wasn't staying on in the bandolier very well. It wasn't because I was trying to look cool. It was the only way I was just trying to get it. And then at the M4 on this side, I had what we call the GLM, a grenade launching mechanism that you can attach via Picatinny rail. It was to the bottom of I had a HK 416 was my M4, I don't know why I did, but for some reason I had taken it off. Before. I think it's because I think somebody made fun of me because my gun looked like the dang Deadpool, cable. Yeah. I was just huge. I mean, it was M4. I got all these, got an EOTech, I got an at peel, I got everything. I have a 4-in grip, and then I put a little GLM under the bottom of it. I took it off because, and honestly, it wasn't staying on that well anyway. Whenever I'd shoot a test round, it would sometimes come loose. So I was like, screw it, I don't need this. I took it off, but I couldn't find it when we got back to the annex. I wish I'd had it. Tig had our first one, and I'm glad he had that one. He had an HK 69 is what they're called. They're the standalone breech fed 203s. But he had dropped it. The movie spot on. He dropped it when we were leaving. It fell off. He hadn't tied it off very well. So when he ran, it fell off. So when we got back to the annex, when they were moving on us, I mean, I had a 416, but man, I was like, man, this is too easy. I just need a 203. I can just lob some rounds in there. Because they were all clustered together. And I remember I was like, Tig, where's your 69? He goes, man, I dropped it. I knew I had a GLM somewhere. I'm calling on the radio. Guys, I need my other grenade. Where's it at? I did show that in the movie, but before that first attack, I had climbed down the ladder and I checked every vehicle. I checked our main building C. That's the building that got hit and all our gear was. I looked in there. I was yelling at the SPOs, the specialist police officers, the 2 CI security guys that were watching the cameras. It's like, have you guys seen it? I mean, and I couldn't find it. And Boone's like, dude, he goes, screw it. You need to get back up here. They're moving. And I still to this day have no idea where it went. It was sitting in my locker because I had commandeered that thing. It wasn't in my gear locker. I don't know where it went. And the other one we had, again, like I said, Tig dropped it. But man, I think that I wish I would have had that 203. I'm glad I had the 46. I'm glad we had plenty of rounds for our 416s. And Boone had our, gosh, I can't remember what he had. I know it is. It was a sniper rifle, and I know what it is. SR-25. He had that up there. And man, but that 203, especially when that gelatina bomb came over the back gate and it blew up, it would have just been easy just to foom, foom, foom. I mean, 3 rounds and it would have just took them. I mean, it would have just killed that whole Maj Podge of people of the Ansar Sharia and Al Qaeda coming through that area. But yeah, that is the one thing I wish I would have had. And hindsight's 2020. When I went to Yemen, I made sure that I had a 203 either in my locker or I mounted it, and I Loctited that son of a bitch on my 416, so I had it.
I know you said it was pretty accurate and spot on. In my mind, I'm looking, you guys on the rooftop, and the movie depicts it's the meat processing plant.
It's a sheep slaughterhouse. Yeah, the sheep.
But into my mind, it kind of looked like a Quonset hut, or like a greenhouse that all the the plastic had been torn off, but. That was a sheep slaughterhouse.
Actually, it reminded me of what those sheet metal kind of when you come to the Midwest, and you see, or even if you're in DC and you go up to the northern part of Virginia, the not really the Quonset, the sheet metal bars that you kind of see. That's really what it was. So it was a big sheet metal. You can call it a Quonset hut. Out here, it's a barn. The fabricated ones you can put up like that. You got a concrete slab, and then you just. And it was huge. I mean, it was extended at least 75 meters shotgun ways, and it was about 40 meters wide. And then they just had holding pens right there so the sheep would go around it. I mean, that honestly it looked pretty dang accurate of what it really. But yeah, it was right behind our place, man. And that's why that prison gym we had outside always flies on it. Man, it just sucked. It always stunk, especially in the heat. But yeah, the sheep were there, and I do remember because Tig was calling us on the radio that night, and he did say this to the camera guy. I mean, the SPO watching the video cameras, because the sheep kept humping each other, and he's like, "Man, I think these sheep are humping each other." And somebody came across the radio. It may have been Oz and said, or maybe even been Boone, said, "Hey, make sure nobody's sneaking underneath them." And so that was going on that night. The sheep kept humping each other, and we thought maybe somebody was trying to move their way in, but we didn't know nothing about sheep. So I still think it was the sheep were just getting frisky, and they were outside on their pens, and they were, because of all the gunfire and stuff that is happening, they're freaking out. And honestly, I think they were just trying to find space for each other, but it looked like they were trying to hump each other. It was kind of funny. I mean, it's comical.
Yeah, well, because I do remember that. I think that comment or that statement made it to the movie.
Yeah, Tig said that to the camera guy. He goes, "Man, I don't know nothing about sheep." He goes, "It looks like they're humping." And me and Tig talked about that the next day in Germany when we flew out, and we laughed about it. We went to Chili's at the Air Force Base in Stuttgart, and we're getting lit, and it was something we laughed about. I go, "Did you really say, what'd you see in the sheep?" And we had the conversation. He says, "Yeah, I was talking to I forget the SPO's name." He says, "I said, where'd that conversation go like?" And he told me about the whole thing. He goes, "Yeah," because I just told him I don't know nothing about sheep, and maybe they were humping or not, but they were trying to see it on the cameras, because we weren't sure. It's just at that point in time, we weren't letting anything pass by us. I mean, it was kind of ludicrous to think they would sneak under the sheep, but never say never. So we were keeping an eye on it. Yeah, but it was still funny. It was funny.
So within 24 hours, you're at a Chili's in Stuttgart, Germany. What's going on in your mind? And I know, I have a guess as to how that process went, but
and maybe it was, it was a Stuttgart or Ramstein. What's the big air base there? Help me out, brother.
Ramstein would be the big one.
It was the big one. It was Ramstein. Yep. It was Ramstein. And actually, I remember, when we got back, and it started before then. When we got back to Tripoli, we got on that C-130. And it was a Libyan C-130, and I still remember it coming in. I remember looking at it and going, "Man, Americans finally!" And then looking at the tail boom, because all us ground pounders, we're seeing what the plane belongs. I'm expecting to see the stars and stripes on there, and I see that red, green, and black flag. It was a Libyan transport.
No kidding.
C-130. And I'm like, man. And it wasn't at that point, it wasn't a sense of being pissed because we'd already been left behind. I mean, they weren't, I was like, man, finally, at least Americans are coming to at least get us. And I just went, still no fucking Americans. In my head, that's what I said. They verbally said it in the movie, but that's what I said in my head. And I put my head down. But I remember going and talking to pilots. They flew us out. And that was a story within itself because the plane didn't show up for us. It just showed up. We got lucky.
Where did they take you?
Tripoli. We went to Tripoli first.
Okay.
We loaded, of course, Roan, and we loaded the ambassador, and we loaded Bub on there. And that was an experience in itself just because rigor mortis had sit in with Roan and Bub. And it was wild because we're sitting with the 2 Delta guys that came in. Our team is there. The other GRS guys that came in with Bub are there. And we don't have body bags. And I remember we had putting sheets over the top of, we had a body bag for the ambassador. We didn't have one for Roan or Bub or Sean. So we had sheets over them. But one sheet looked like a pitched tent because Bub's arm rigor mortis had sit in the way we had him. And his arm was up like this. So it was like the elephant in the room. I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at the guys. I'm like, does this not bother anybody? Because it was really bothering me. And I remember, I even said it out loud. I said, fuck it. And I got up and I remember that was hard because I basically broke his arm because I couldn't stand seeing. And I just remember just pop, 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 pop. But we, I got him on it because I didn't want to fly an hour looking with that, but we got to, and it's still though, it didn't affect me like it does now. It just was like kind of like a fuck, okay, fine. So what else? It's like something else,
Yeah.
But it was out of respect too. I said I didn't want Bub to look. That's not how I want people to remember. I don't want to remember him like that. And I don't know if it's selfish or selfish, but it's what I thought. And and that was hard. That was hard to do. It was really, but I did it. And then we got to Tripoli. I had no clothes. I was the one guy that didn't manage to get downstairs to get any of his shit. So I didn't have nothing. But I borrowed some clothes from other GRS guys. There's a picture of me sitting on the porch. I remember somebody took a picture of it. I posted it every once in a while on 9/11. I had an overgrown New York Yankees hat, so it looks too big on my head. I had somebody's wife beater t-shirt on. I had these, I don't know if they were 511s or Vertex, but they were way too tight. So, they're like, it just looked like I was wearing spandex, and I had a dip in my mouth because I was like, man, I'm really fiending. I need a Copenhagen, and I had a dip in my mouth. But I remember just sitting there on that porch. I tried to smile. You can see I'm kind of half smiling because I'm still kind of out of it. I'm tired, and I just remember getting some food, and then I heard, Eric Stahl's coming in with their C-17. He's coming in with the J-Mal bird, the medical bird. Because Oz and Dave Ubben are really bad off. Their arms had almost been sheared off. And Dave Ubben's leg was almost sheared off. They're bleeding out. I remember that we went down there, and that crew chief there, the load master there on that C-17, she was awesome. She was so cool. We went up there and we're like, hey, they had already prepared the coffins. They already had the flags on them already. I thought that was amazing. And we went up to her and we're like, we know that it's against your rules, but we'd like to load these coffins on ourselves. Can we do that? And there was no argument. It was like, yes, you go ahead. It was really awesome. So we did that. We loaded them on, and we had the J-Mouse. So we had surgeons on the bird. We got Oz and Dave on there, and they took care of them. And we flew to Germany, and as we got to Germany, I wouldn't let my M4 go, and I wouldn't give up my bullets. I wasn't. It was some other guys had downloaded their stuff. I didn't do it. I was like, no. So I did what I needed to do in the airplane, like you do when you clear. You have you're not with a hot gun on the C-17, but I kept my magazines. And we got there. General Ham came on the bus, and he said, I don't even remember what he said. To be honest with you, at that point, I couldn't even cared who the hell
Right.
And I just remember going up to him. I'm thinking, man, okay, I'm in the air base now. I need an amnesty box. I got to get rid of this ammo, and I got to let him know. I've got my M4 with me, and he was cool. I said, hey, sir, I wasn't gonna let go of my stuff, but I have ammo I need to get rid of because I knew I finally felt safe. We got there. I'm like, okay, I'm safe. I'm good. And he's like, yeah, there's an amnesty box there. And I tell you what, though, the USO was there. They were awesome. They were if there's any military group, and maybe people have had bad experiences with them, I did. They had stations set up for us. I had no gear, and the lady came up to me after I went to the amnesty box and gave my ammo away, and I still kept my M4 with me, but it was downloaded. She goes, "What'd you lose?" And I said, "I lost everything, man." And she's like, "Okay, write it down, and we're gonna send some of the PX and get all." And I did. I wrote everything down. I gave it to her, and they had place where I had sweats. I could get a bag. I could get some underwear, some socks, and toiletries, and a little food. And I remember I did all that. Got all my stuff, was kind of feeling good, a little bit like, okay, somebody actually gives a shit. And I went to the hotel. I went to the barracks at the Air Force, which was a freaking, come on, it's the Air Force barracks. It's a hotel. I'm in a hotel. And
right.
I remember, that's when Tig and I were like, it was, hey man, I wonder if Chili's is still open. Let's go check it out. And we went down there, and Tig and I just got drunk, and I just started, he asked, because if you watch the movie, even everything that was going on, we weren't together. We were away from each other a lot. I mean, I was next to Boone a lot, but I wasn't around Tig a whole bunch. I wasn't around Oz or Jack until we got back to the annex. So it was a Q&A with him and I joking, but asking, hey man, what happened here? When I was here, where were you at? When you were here, and it's kind of doing an intel collection while we're drinking Jack Daniel's whiskey and laughing at the stuff that a normal person would think is offensive.
Yeah, but, dark humor to be able to cope with it. I think that's a fair thing.
Well, that's what it was. I remember laughing because I remember the scene in the movie. I remember we talked about Dave. I said, dude, was that you that went up on the rooftop when the mortars hit? He goes, yeah, I was up there. I go, what'd you see? Because I didn't see anything. I just saw the mortars. I saw the mortars hit them. I was shooting over their head when the mortars hit. And as my night vision came back, all I saw was pixie dust. I didn't see nothing. I just saw the debris. I basically looked like those four, Roan, Dave, Oz, and Bub had got turned to dust. So I asked Tig, I said, did you see? He said, yeah, I got up there. I go, what'd you see? And we started laughing. He goes, well, I went up to Dave, and Dave had his pistol out, and he was bleeding everywhere. And I was worried Dave was going to shoot somebody, so I took Dave's pistol, and Dave started screaming at me, saying, hey, I need my pistol. Because Dave thought he was going to get hit again. Dave's just been rocked. His arms and legs are about sheared off. And we found that, I don't know why, but we found that so hilarious. It was just, we were just laughing. Maybe it was because we were drinking a lot. And I said, what'd you do? He says, he goes, well, I gave it back to him, of course. He's sitting there yelling all the time. He goes, he says, I also dropped the magazine and took one out of the chamber because he goes, I was worried he was going to panic when I came back and he was going to shoot me. And I'm saying it matter of factly now, but when we're drinking, it's funny. We're laughing, and it was, and it's stuff like that. And that was another. I'm laughing because this was funny. He said, then I went to Oz, and Oz had his arm. It was damn near amputated. Oz had been trying to get his tourniquet on. He said, I go, what'd you see? He goes, well, I saw Oz, and all I saw Oz was doing this with his arm thing. And man, look at my arm. Look at my arm. And Tig's like, I said, well, what'd you do? He goes, I was yelling at him. He goes, I was getting so pissed because he's like, I was afraid he was going to twist his arm off. Like it was going to fall off. Yeah. And I literally fell out of my chair. I don't know if it was the way he said it. I don't know what, but I fell in my chair laughing because to me, it was just, I could imagine Tig going up there just being the country boy redneck, getting up there just being pissed off and seeing, Oz and I don't get along, but I respect he's a tough son of a bitch. I do respect his toughness. And I could see Oz playing with his arm, being so discombobulated, going, man, this is freaking cool. Look at my... Yeah. And, but that's the things that Chili's are. And it was, and we were loud, and I knew everybody could hear us, and we were probably freaking some of the airmen out in there. These two civilians talking about, and really, they had no idea what was going on. They had no idea Benghazi.
Yeah, completely clueless.
The news had started to put stuff out, but it really wasn't big story, at least there yet. Maybe back in the States it was. Thanks 24/7 news cycle, it was a complete. It was complete decompression, drinking, laughing, instead of going back to your room and crying. That's what it was. And I remember that. And then when I got back to my room, it was like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And there's a knock on the door, and that USO lady, they had already let him in the PX, and she had, hey, here's your stuff. And it did feel good. It felt like
someone cared.
Yeah, someone gave a shit. So that's why I always tell people, who do you give to? I give the USO. I've had the USO took good care of me. So, and I have much respect for those people. That's why whenever I'm at the airport and I'll stop in, I always put money in the box because they really made me feel good when I was feeling like, son of a bitch, these motherfuckers left us behind, and I didn't feel like that anymore.
What happened when you got home? What was the process as far as debriefing? Was there any debrief?
Yeah,
like
we always debriefed. We always did. We always would come back for a couple of days. We'd hand in our black or our dip passports, and we'd we do a debrief. What'd you see? And most time it was just pretty mundane because the same stuff happened. And then but this one we came back. They actually sent a GRS guy out to us, and Greg actually he was a solid GRS staffer. He was enlisted. I think he was a ranger before. And he was a contractor before he became a staffer. But he came out, and he debriefed us there. We told him what happened, and then we went back to DC, and we went back to George Bush, the HQ, and you walk in there, and they sat us down, and they had our GRS support people, all our GRS leadership in there, and they just say, hey, what happened? And we actually went up to the mapping room and we showed them on the schematics, this is where I was, this is where he was, and we did the whole rigmarole, the whole AAR. And so we could show where everybody was at this point in time and our movements and who called what, and who said this and who said that. And then when we went down to the meeting room, it was a full on, okay guys, what happened? And I remember we just all had our input. This is what happened. And then, hey, what are your recommendations? My one recommendation was, hey, everybody needs to have their own set of different gear, just like we do within the Rangers and the SEALs. So when an op comes and I need an SR-25, mine's right there. When an op comes and I need a 203, I have mine right. So we all have these different loadouts like SOCOM does. I said, we need that. I said, Ground Branch has that. I know we're not SAD, but we probably need that. Obviously, it fell on deaf ears because I still don't think they're doing that for them. But it was more of this is what we need for if this ever happens again. And then I remember they asked me, well, what'd you think? How'd your TL do? I can't say his name or his call sign because I think he's still working. We didn't portray him in the movie for that particular reason, is because he was worthless. We wrote about him in the book. Actually, the movie, Bob and our team leader, our staff guy, is an amalgam. How do you say that? They're a combined person. There's a word.
Yeah, they're one and the same. They're just some.
We put traits of both of them in there. The book, we have both of them. But I remember they asked me. They said, "Well, how did he do?" I said, "He did great." And Boone says, "Yeah, he did great because he stayed out of the way." I was like, "Yeah, because he didn't do anything. He stayed where he needed."
What's the TO stand for in that?
The TL, the team leader. The team leader. He was our team leader.
Yeah.
He was now in the movie. You'll see the movie. Roan was our team leader. Actually, Roan was our assistant team leader. A staffer has to be your actual TL. The reason we didn't have that is because Roan really was our team leader. I mean, we listened to him. He was the guy we went to, and our TL really didn't do anything, in my opinion. But that being said, we did have him. He's in the book, and we wrote about him, so it's not like we left him out. And in the movie, I found that they do that. There's characters that are combined. Our interpreter is two different interpreters. We had one.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we got back and then I went home, and I took my normal leave, and then it was hard to go back out. I didn't really want to because now I'm like, oh shit, they are going to leave us behind. But I just kept, my grandfather, he always would taught me that you don't ever quit. You don't give up. Going gets hard. Keep pushing through. Keep grinding. Get back up on that horse and keep riding. And I remember I said, yeah, I'm ready to go. And they said, well, Yemen's going crazy right now. We need you to go to Sanaa. And I got on a plane, and that was the first time any of my kids cried when I left too. It was hard. My daughter was bracelets, but yeah, I remember went to the airport, and she was, how old was she at that time? She's 13 now. She was like three or four. And she said that she started crying, and I was like, what's wrong, darling? I'm just going to work. It was just Daddy's always going to work, It never was, I'm just going to work. She goes, I don't want you to go fight bad guys anymore. and I lost it a little bit, and I held it together so she didn't panic. And my wife looked at me, and I gave him a hug, and I didn't hurry, but I moved efficiently, and I said, I love you, I gotta go. Because I almost didn't. I was like, fuck, I'm not, I almost was like, I'm not going. And like, nope.
Yeah.
And that was hard. But then I went out to Yemen, and actually I was part of that whole quagmire where we cut and run there as well. If people don't remember that wasn't at Benghazi, but we cut and run out of there when we just messed that place up and turned it into a third world.
When were you there?
2013. So it was 2013 when we just left. And, I don't know if people remember that when the Marines were throwing their bolts out and everybody's just driving to the airport and getting the hell out of there. And then we left everything behind there. I mean, literally that was a precursor for Afghanistan on a smaller scale. But I do remember working Sana'a, and I remember that I remember getting back in the saddle. It took me a couple weeks where I didn't want to do anything. I was just still kind of, And then I started to get back out and do my job again, and I remembered how I had fun, and it helped me. It helped me because I just started working again. And I'm glad I went back out, because if I hadn't, I think I would have been worse off. My mind got back right, and I realized, okay, I can still do this. Shit happens. All right, they may not have my back, but you know what? This guy does. I'm good. And I enjoyed my trips to Sana'a, and then at the middle of 2013, that's when we started to get shit on in the office, and that's when we decided as a team. We decided to tell the truth, and we just figured the best way to do that was the book, and because none of us trusted the media, and we knew it was going to get slanted one way or the other. So we're like, well, what can we do? Well, let's do this. And we had contacts. I had a contact with CNN because I protected their executive producer whenever she went to Afghanistan. So I called her and I said, hey, I added something for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I can't talk about it, but it's pretty big. Can you help us? Because I think it'd be a great story that people would need to know. And it wasn't just, but I remember, that's kind of a story in itself. But I remember sitting there with the team, because we had just got shit on at the funeral for Ron and Bub, and when they put their stars on the wall, and they made us sign another non-disclosure while we were there. It was totally classless, they being the agency. And I remember us going to the Ritz-Carlton and sitting at their bar there, all of us being pissed off, and Jack saying, man, that was fucked up what they did to us there. And all of us were like, yeah, man, after all we've been through, and they're going to treat us like that. And that's when we did. We're like, well, what do? Either we don't say anything and we keep working, or we all come together and we do it and we say something, and we're going to do it the right way and protect ourselves. But it has to be a team decision. And if anybody voted no, then we weren't going to do it. And we all said, yep, we're going to do it. And we all came out together and said, no. And that's when the 13 hours in the books, that's when that started to roll.
Everything started to happen.
But all of us had been working except for Oz up to that point. Tig went to Lebanon, Jack came to Sana'a with me, and Boone went to Aden. Boone went down to Aden. So we all just kept, because we never wanted to do we never wanted to do that. None of us wanted to be in that kind of spotlight, and that was not the plan in life. But to make the decision as a team was, to me, it made it okay. But we all still had reservations, except for the SEALs, of course. No, I'm kidding. I'm just giving shit. No,
they're waiting to write the book.
I'm giving them shit. But yeah, that was it. We all just kept working until we just got fed up. We're like, screw you guys, fine. All right. And then we all told the truth. That's what happened.
Well, Tanto, I'm going to tell you one light-hearted story that kind of go along with that, but I'm going to tell that to give you a little bit of time, because I always ask my guests as we kind of wrap up here, like, if you found 15, 16-year-old Tanto walking down the street, what would you tell him? But so I'll give you a second to think about that as I tell this. One, it's kind of funny you mentioned flying out on a Libyan C-130, because I didn't know they had them. There's actually a Dobbins Air Force Base right up the street from me. This is probably 15, 20 years ago. I was going to tour the base. They make that's the C-130 plant for Lockheed. There's a spot, at least then, and I think it's still there, off in the woods, and there's like 4 or 5 C-130s that have trees growing up through them, and they're Libyan C-130s that Gaddafi paid for before the embargo happened.
Gotcha.
And they didn't know what to do with them. I'm surprised they didn't, we're seizing these and they're going to be, ours or whatever it was. But yeah, it's funny that, they're probably still sitting up in the woods right now.
That's so awesome. That being said, have you ever seen the movie Major League where they get on the plane and that's what I felt like. Like they're taping the propellers up on the outs. I thought we were going to die on, I was like, shit, we're going to die on this thing. It's never going to fly. Now,
survive that and then end up on that.
So it looked like probably one of those planes that was in the. It did.
Yeah.
I literally thought that the propellers had been taped up with electrical tape. It was scary as shit. That's so funny to hear that.
Yeah. So again, there's not many scenarios I would get on a Libyan Air Force aircraft. Though your scenario I think qualifies for that. But in Kandahar, I remember seeing the C-27. The Afghan Air Force got C-27s. Wow. This thing sat. It was in a dip in the ramp, and throughout the monsoon season, if you will, probably 4 or 5 times there was at least a foot of water into the aircraft, just sitting there. I'm like, and for those who don't know, like that's not a good thing for planes. So yeah, there you go. That's the lighthearted version, but you can find Tanto Battleline Podcast as well as I think you'll see me and him together in the future. He's a co-founder of E3 Firearms Association. You can find it at e3firearmsassociation.com. That's launching here in the near future. Yeah. And then I'm excited to be doing E3 Aviation Association, which will be early next year. So
when can we combine the two and shoot? Can I shoot? I want to shoot out of airplanes, dude. Or
we got to do that. Yeah, we got to do that. I think that's legal. I don't know.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. But Tantos, now I feel like I've given you enough time to transition here. You found 15, 16-year-old Tanto walking down the street. Is there any advice you would give him? Tell him to do something different, et cetera.
I'd say watch out for women. Definitely. Okay. Or just be careful. All right. I think with your big head, not your little one. Definitely would say that. But other than that, no. I'm glad all the experiences I went through because it's helped me get stronger and stronger and stronger. I think if I would have missed any of that, I really wouldn't be the person I am today. And I like who I am today. I'm very happy. I'm very happy that I can sit on my porch and life's gravy now. There's really nothing else I feel like I need to prove. I need to prove to anybody, especially myself. And I get to be a father and a husband. I would say just the typical things I think any teenager needs to hear is this, and also listen to your mother. Your mother's always right, and that is the God honest truth. But that's just the simple. That's why this funny thing. It's always the basics. It's the fundamentals. It doesn't matter what it is. If you do and those are the fundamentals, especially as a teenage boy. Just watch out for women out there. Not all of them are good for you. And again, and part of that also is if you think with your big head, not your little head, a lot of that will cancel each other out. So you'll be fine. But also the main thing is, I think my mom's always been right. I had to say it now, but she has. So listen to your mother, son. Listen to your mother. She is always right. And that's spot on. And so, those are the 3 things that I would say to my younger self. Everything else, hey, just go. I even tell younger guys now, just experience it. Don't worry if it's a failing. Failings is how you be successful. You learn from those failings. Maybe I would say that, hey, don't worry about failing. You're going to be successful off it. But then that would eliminate some of the stress that comes with failing. So I wouldn't. I'd be thinking that, but I'd be biting my tongue because you got to learn from those failings and how to deal with those failings to be successful. But but I learned that pretty quick at Range of Battalion with all the fuck games they played with us, dude. So I figured that out pretty quick. But buddy, I think I'm very happy with how my life has turned out, and whatever happens from this point forward, or from 2017 on when I remarried with my wife and got my family back together and stopped being an idiot. It's just been gravy. It's been fantastic.
That's awesome.
So, I'm very happy. I'm happy with everything.
Well, Tanto, I really appreciate it. I might throw in there, you might want to get a new travel agent. It seems, again, the places they send you, not the best places. But, again, dude, it's experience.
I have timeshares in Mosul. If you want to go, you go experience. I got them for you, man. Timeshares right there in Kandahar and Mosul. We'll send you out there. You'll love it. Just go.
You got to get in. You got to get in early when the real estate's cheap. Now's the time. Yeah.
That's hilarious, brother. That's awesome. But thanks, man. I appreciate it, brother. You're awesome.
Well, Tanto, I appreciate it. Battleline Podcast and then E3 Firearms Association.com. Check Tanto out. I really appreciate it. And it was good chatting.
You too, brother. God bless you, man. Be safe.